Okay, with that, I think we'll get started then. So just thanks again, everyone, for taking the time this afternoon to join us for Metallic Minerals East Keno drill results webinar. I'll just turn things right away over to our CEO and Chairman, Greg Johnson, who will take everyone through the latest, and then we'll pause for a Q&A at the end. So Greg, with that, I'll turn it right over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We're excited to have this webinar where we're going to focus primarily on a little more technical presentation. I think we'll give kind of a high-level overview of the company and the Keno district, and then we'll dive right into the latest results that we're excited to share with everybody. Okay, we are going to be making forward-looking statements. This is on our website. I strongly encourage people to read the disclosure statements. So just by way of introduction for those that maybe are newer to the Metallic Group and Metallic Minerals. Metallic Minerals is the silver-focused member of a group of companies. The Metallic Group, we started to put this together in 2016. We sensed a turning point in the marketplace for metals. Group 10 Metals, sister company to Metallic Minerals, is focused in the battery metals and platinum group element space. And our newest company, Granite Creek Copper, is our copper gold explorer developer focused in the Minto-Carmax belt of central Yukon. All three companies share a common approach to business. Starting with Metallic Minerals in Keno Hill in 2016, we were able to identify brownfields district that already had existing high-grade production, and yet, because they were controlled by smaller companies, still had district-scale land positions to be consolidated. Really, what we wanted to see was the opportunity to be able to bring new thinking, new geologic models, new technology to bear, but in a place where we saw the potential for a world-class discovery that a large producer would be interested in. So looking at, I started out my career with Placer Dome, went on to be one of the co-founders at Nova Gold. Many of the other members of the Metallic team are former Nova Gold alumni. So we've been trying to apply certain elements of the Nova Gold approach that works so well in terms of creating value in the last metal price cycle, namely the acquisition of potentially world-class assets at the bottom of the metal price cycle. So 2001 for Donlin Creek for gold, 2003 for Galore for our copper gold asset, and 2004 for the zinc copper asset at Ambler. The business approach after acquisition was pretty straightforward. Applying the team's expertise in exploration to grow these resources significantly 3- and 4-fold from those early days, and then to advance the projects through the de-risking and engineering stages, PEA, pre-feasibility, feasibility, and along the way create value. We see that part of discovery to de-risking and resource growth as being one of the greatest areas in mining space for developing significant value for shareholders, and it's really a key part of the model that we're looking to employ in the Metallic Group companies. So with the Metallic Group starting in 2016, we recognized the opportunity in the Keno Hill Silver District to come in and acquire this district scale land position where we saw an opportunity to make new major discoveries. What was the model that we saw here? We see Keno Hill as being an analog to the Coeur d'Alene district in Idaho, which has produced over 2 billion ounces and spawned companies like Core, Hecla, and others. They are now mining at 3 kilometers depth from surface. By contrast, in Keno Hill, the deepest mine is 300 meters from surface. There's been about 300 million ounces in combined past production and current resources. And the recent discoveries at Birmingham, in our mind, really highlight the potential in this district to have major discoveries. And ultimately, we see this as a potential billion-ounce district. The second asset to come into the group of companies in Group 10 Metals, our sister company to Metallic Minerals, was in 2017 when we were able to take the same approach, acquiring the lower half of the Stillwater complex. The new geologic model that we're applying here is the Platte Reef type bulk tonnage PGE nickel copper systems, similar to Ivanhoe and Anglo in the Bushveld complex. In 2018, we applied the same approach in the Carmax Minto copper belt with Granite Creek Copper, acquiring at first the middle part of the district, an asset that had been off the market for over 50 years. and then recently merged Granite Creek with Copper North to consolidate the whole southern part of the district, now with a resource that we're in the process of advancing, growing, and de-risking. So really demonstrating that business model. And then last asset that we'll mention, the acquisition in metallic minerals again of the La Plata silver gold high-grade district. This one is an interesting one. It's kind of a hybrid between a precious metal rich porphyry like a Galore Creek, as well as a high-grade vein district like Keno Hill. So this is an excellent fit for our team. It's a second asset for metallic minerals. We don't think there's a lot of value yet in La Plata, but we see the potential in this asset for it to become something with very significant value, potentially on par with something like a Galore or a Keno Hill. So moving directly into the metallic minerals evolution, again, the team coming together in 2016 and recognizing the tremendous potential of the Keno district with over 200 million ounces of past production, 100 million ounces in total new resources, 74 million M&I, 24 million roughly inferred and growing. The recent discoveries of Birmingham and Flame and Moth by Alexco Resources, our next door neighbor, really highlighting that this is not only a high-grade historic district, but a district that is making new discoveries that are of the size that the large silver producers are looking for, 50+ million ounce deposits. The recent news by Alexco that they're continuing to grow Birmingham at depth really, in our minds, reinforces the potential to really see significant growth in this district. And we see the potential to find new Birmingham scale systems. We were able to consolidate 166 square kilometer land position really in three pieces. About a third of the district was held privately. About a third of the district was held by other juniors in non-core assets. And about a third of the district, because it was a bear market in terms of the part that we went after, we basically were able to stake because it got dropped. And so along with those land positions came 8 past producing mines. These were really deposits that occurred right at surface that in the 20s and 30s were able to be mined by hand and demonstrate that you had the structure going through, that it made grade, and that it was really able to be high enough grade material that could be mined by hand at that point. And for us, from a modern point of view, this represents the kind of opportunity to come in and be able to explore using modern tools and techniques that could lead to new discoveries. With the completion of those acquisitions in the first couple of years, we shifted gears towards a data compilation process, really bringing together over 100 years of exploration records in the district. Alexco was very generous in providing some of the data that they had in their files that applied to our ground. And we were able to quickly identify 6 advanced stage targets that had underground sampling, drilling, or trenching that started to highlight a mineral inventory, or perhaps even had a historic resource that we've been able to advance. And we're now drilling on those to advance those towards a modern 43-101 resource. In addition, we took a look at the underexplored parts of this brownfield district, particularly on the eastern half of the district, and recognized the same geologic setting as on the west, which has produced these ounces and these recent discoveries, but really had been vastly underexplored. Following up work that was completed back in the 1960s, we quickly undertook to take geophysics, soils, mapping, and from that work developed 12 multi-kilometer scale targets that were the first tested for the very first time in late 2020. And part of that is what we're talking about today with the discoveries at Keno East. We applied a similar approach at La Plata with the recent acquisition back in fall of 2019. We've undertaken the first work there to start to advance that in parallel. We'll talk about that briefly in another minute. And then I just want to take a second to mention, the significance of the brownfields component. In this situation where we have a mill, we have power on site, we have road access to the ground, it really aids metallic minerals shareholders in many ways in terms of value creation. First of all, if we make a modest discovery, our path line to production is much more streamlined. You can look at lower cost to advance an asset in a much faster timeline. In fact, one opportunity might be to work with the producer next door through some kind of arrangement, joint venture or otherwise, to fast track those discoveries to production. find something larger, you're probably attracting acquirers to the table. Find something larger still, and something perhaps is a consolidation of the entire district into one of the bigger producer hands. So really, compared to a greenfield standalone project, having those roads and power and other infrastructure in place dramatically aids how fast you can move things, what the hurdle rate you need to have success is, and the cost to be able to develop those assets. Okay, we're talking about really 3 key assets in metallic minerals today. We'll be focused primarily on Keno Hill and Keno East in particular today, but I'll just take a moment to talk about the other 2. La Plata, as I mentioned, was historically a high-grade silver and gold district up through 1800s to the 1940s. It was mined very similar to Keno Hill by hand, these very high-grade occurrences that came right to surface. But in the 1950s and 60s, we saw major miners, Rio Tinto and Phelps Dodge, Freeport, McMoran, come into the district recognizing a high precious metal porphyry system that was exposed in the center of the district. 49 drill holes completed on the property in that time frame developed a historic resource. The opportunity here in terms of low-hanging fruit for metallic minerals is to come in and do enough confirmatory work of that historic resource that we can advance that towards a modern 43-101 resource. So our efforts on the ground have been designed really to be able to bring in modern sampling across the district, modern geophysics, and start to use some of the same tools that have been so effective at Keno Hill on this second asset. The last item in the portfolio that I'll just mention are the alluvial production royalty. This is in the Klondike Gold District, the famous historic mining district. Today, half of the gold production in the Yukon comes from open pit alluvial operations in the Klondike. We've acquired a large block of underground mine that's right on trend with some of the biggest mines in that region. And we are licensing 5 to 10 year pieces of ground to experienced operators with the objective to receive royalty on production. We give them a year or 2 to get the exploration, the infrastructure, and the bulk samples in place, and then we look in year 3 for it to move into production. We've already permitted 4 of these parcels, and we're in the process of permitting another 8. So it's not the core focus of the company, but it's something that has the potential to quickly move towards cash flow, and it's something that over time, we'll see how well it develops. It's pretty early days, but this has the potential to cover our administrative costs and ultimately to be something that we can either dividend to shareholders or even look to spin out. It's a nice sustainability feature to have. Looking quickly here at the leadership team, this is a group focused on exploration in our careers, has had a track record of success over 6 major discoveries globally, 3 that are very relevant to the work that we're doing in the Yukon. The giant Donlin Creek, Alaska gold deposit, one of the world's largest undeveloped resources at Galore Creek, where we expanded that resource to one of the largest undeveloped copper gold silver systems in Canada, and then the Wellgreen PGM nickel copper system in the Yukon. This really speaks to the team's ability to work effectively with the local communities, with the government, and to really try to avoid any unnecessary delays and to be able to advance these quite quickly. We've also been recognized for our work in sustainable development, and we really take pride in the ESG element of our business and believe that mining has the ability to be a significant sustainable asset for these communities that are really resource-based economies like the Yukon. Infrastructure, just touch on this briefly. The Keno Hill district sits really center top of this photo. You've got a highway that connects the project to past the town of Mayo, where you've got a hydro facility, and then down to the deep sea port at Skagway, which is a year-round deep sea port with a concentrate shipping facility already there that's been used historically by Alexco, as well as the Minto mine. In addition, we've got 4 megawatts of power on site. 1 megawatt is currently being used by the mill. Road access to really all parts of the district, and certainly everything we're working on is within trucking distance of that centralized mill. So zooming down a bit here to the regional scale, just to give you a sense for where we're working. That photo that we saw earlier of the district was looking down the Silver Trail Highway. The mill sits in the center of the district here in Keno City. These are Alexco's holdings in the medium grain, metallic minerals in the golden brown on either side. In addition, other explorers like Strategic Metals hold ground to the south, Banyan Gold, which is gold focused, to the west, and then Victoria Gold and their new large-scale open pit operation that's just gone into production across the valley. To the north, our McKay Hill property, you've got ATAC Resources and a number of other explorers in this region. So it really highlights the fact that there's a lot of activity in this region, speaks to really the general, well-mineralized nature of this region and the ability to successfully operate here effectively. This is the mill that sits near Keno City. This has been recently upgraded. This is a photo from last fall. Alexco has gone back into production with the new discovery at Birmingham, Flame and Moth. They've refurbished the mill and are fully up and operating and producing concentrate. A couple of highlights from the feasibility that really stand out. CapEx to build 2 new declines of the size that we're looking at. So kind of 30 to 50 million ounce deposits was $23 million. Why so small? These are relatively compact ore bodies. They start right at surface. You've already got a mill and infrastructure in the center of the district. So it really makes for low CapEx type development. Grade 800 grams per ton is one of the highest grade operating silver mines in the world, in any at least publicly traded company. And at 4 to 5 million ounces of production in the current mine plan per year, you're looking at a top 15 silver producer at only 400 tons per day. So expand that to 600 or 800 tons a day, still a modest size operation. You've got the potential to push into a top 10 silver producer that's one of the highest grade in the world in a district that's controlled by juniors. So this is what a Keno style deposit, a classic high grade, discrete Keno vein. You're looking underground at the Bell Keno mine. This is a width of about 6 meters. You're looking at over 1,700 grams per ton. You can see the silver-rich galena here in the center. The darker material would be sphalerite, which is a zinc mineral. This basically is the material that would be drilled, blasted, hauled to the mill, ground to a powder. Flotation creates a concentrate, which is a high-grade silver and lead concentrate and a high-grade zinc concentrate, and that's the products that are produced. Very good metallurgy, very consistent really across the district in terms of these discrete Keno-style veins. And these are what we are targeting on the west and the central part of the district, and that we're seeing in the new drilling at Keno East. But in addition, we see stockwork and continuous alteration and mineralization that goes out beyond these structures at Keno East, and that's part of the exciting new developments and new styles that we're seeing in those areas. Okay, so to set the stage going into Keno East, we're looking first at a geologic map of the district. The geologic pattern here is that you've got a stacked package of metamorphic sedimentary rocks in this district. They're dipping to the south, so at the bottom of this image, they're relatively consistent in thickness as you go across the district. This map is showing you the dots represent the historic prospects. The red lines represent the mapped veins where they occur right at surface. There's a major structural corridor off to the west. There's a major structure off to the east. That set up a strain field at the time of deposition that put these rocks under strain and caused them to break in a very systematic fashion. If we highlight on the map those structural corridors, you'll see that the periodicity of these, about every kilometer to a kilometer and a half, you have a major structural corridor. If we then plot the largest historic producing mines on those corridors here in the orange, and the new discoveries in the mine plan in yellow, what you'll see is that these deposits occur along these major structural corridors where they intercept the brittle host rocks being the quartzite or the greenstones. In addition, if we plot those high-grade historic producers from the 1920s and 30s in the small red circles, you can see that those continue on those known main trends. In the district, you've got over 200 million ounces of past production, but only down to about 300 meters from surface. The new discovery at Birmingham, here at this location on the main Hector Calumet, they're now drilling holes at 500 and 600 meters depth, demonstrating that these deposits are going to continue. As we go to the east, however, we're still looking at the stuff right at surface. And if we look along these trends where the high-grade past producers occur, and then go out and look at the soil and geophysical anomalies that we've developed through our own work, These ellipses represent those very large-scale combined soil and geophysical targets that have been developed by metallic minerals. As you can see, we've got actually more quartzite exposed on the east than you do on the west, which is one of the main rock types. We've also got a larger area of large greenstones. And one of the things that's come out of the mapping and drilling work that we've just done this year is demonstrating that we also have extensive areas of brecciation and silicification, which are resulting in areas that are expanding the rock types that are most favorable to deposition of these style of deposits, both discrete high-grade Keno style and the potential for bulk tonnage. Okay, this is the land holdings just to highlight our ground versus Alexco when we're talking about Keno East and our holdings. Where are we looking at? So the outline here in green are the Alexco holdings, about 240 square kilometers. The outline here in the orange-brown color are our holdings. So dominantly, we control pretty much 100% of East. We also have down dip on some of the major structures and internal to Alexco. The black circles represent these advanced stage targets that are advancing towards a mineral inventory based on step-out drilling along the high-grade structures. And the red ellipses represent these early stage targets, many of which got their first drill holes into them, at least a handful of them, in 2020. Okay, so as we came into this district as the new guys, building on the excellent work that was completed by the Alexco team, who really taken this historic mining district and torn it apart in terms of understanding the controls to higher grade mineralization, and particularly the controls to larger deposits. One of the first things we did as part of our process was to undertake and reinterpret all the regional geophysics, as well as to fly new geophysics so that we had context of how mineralization in the district occurs. So looking at the same area that we were looking at the geologic map a few minutes ago, if I plot those structural corridors and I plot the high-grade largest producers, new resources, those high-grade historic producing mines and the soil anomalies, what you can see, the base map here is a magnetic map that is mapping subsurface geology using the magnetism of the rocks. And these light colors represent magnetic low features. The lighter, hotter colors represent magnetic high features. And one of the things you take away when looking at this map is the spatial relationship between the very largest occurrences at Keno Hill and these magnetic features. We interpret these magnetic features to potentially be subsurface geology that's different in its magnetic signature and different in this case, likely to be an intrusive. And potentially these intrusions, because of their spatial relationships, may be associated closely with the original source fluids and metals that form the Keno deposits. So as you'll notice here, what you've got on the western side of the deposit in the very largest deposits, they very closely associate with this magnetic low feature. In other words, all of these large deposits hosted in the quartzite or greenstones are within close proximity to this magnetic flow feature. We then see these magnetic flow features continue to the east and then wrap to the south. And when you look at the relationship between these magnetic low features and the circled soil anomalies, you can see that these mag features are now directly beneath these large multi-kilometer soil features. So that type of spatial relationship started to get us thinking about, yes, we have the potential to the east with a classic Keno type setting, but it also looks like we have a potential association with underlying magnetic systems. And these start to suggest you could have systems of bulk tonnage scale and different styles of mineralization in addition to classic high-grade Keno type styles. So when we think of the largest of these, they are things like the Penasquito deposit, which is a huge silver lead zinc system owned by Newmont in Mexico. And the key to understanding Penasquito is that the deposits themselves are hosted in structures up in the volcanics and sedimentary rocks above a major porphyry or intrusion complex. So the deposits themselves are hosted in breccia zones, sheeted veins, stockwork zones, and these fracture zones and structures really were the focus for the mineralizing fluids. If we take a look at a schematic section from Keno East at the same scale as Penasquito, we see that many of these target areas share many common features with the western side of the district, these classic high-grade vein structures, as you can see diagrammatically shown by these red lines representing those potential structures. This area is very vegetated, so we don't have a lot of rock outcrop, but we do see Keno-style vein material in soils. So these large soil anomalies, we can see a direct source to that, but we also see things that are unique to the eastern side of the district. We see porphyry dikes, we see breccia zones, we see intense alteration and silicification that is not common on the west. And all of these factors start to lead to the potential that in addition to high-grade classic Keno-style mineralization, we have the potential here for things that could become very significant bulk tonnage silver targets. Okay, so diving down into Keno East specifically, we'll look first at the soils, then the geophysics, and then we'll take a look at a long section with some of the drilling on it. So the map here. So we've centered ourselves on the eastern half of the district. Here's the Keno Hill mine, produced about 12 million ounces historically. It was hosted in high-grade vein structures, primarily within greenstones. As you come to the east from the Keno Hill mine, you had historic small-scale high-grade mines in the 20s and 30s at Caribou, at Silver Basin, at Duncan, at Faith, and at Cobalt Hill. This area did see some exploration in the 1950s and 60s by Alexco's predecessor, United Keno Hill Mines. They recognized the Keno Hill quartzite and greenstones occurred in this area, but because of the patchwork land ownership and the lack of road access, they really just saw a bit of early stage exploration in the form of soil and rock sampling. We followed up those areas in 2018, 2019, 2020 with geophysical surveys and on-the-ground soil sampling, and that led to the definition of this map that we see here today. So in terms of scale, this is 2 kilometers for scale down here. These individual anomalies are anywhere from 2 to 5 kilometers in length and up to a couple of kilometers in width. These are not small features. These are the scale that the major mining companies go looking the world for in terms of deposits. In terms of the intensity of these anomalies as well, the bright pink areas are from 10 to 100 grams per ton silver in soils. And so the magnitude of these anomalies is also quite substantial in terms of the continuity of these broad scales. The yellow here show the drilling that we completed with our reconnaissance RC drilling in 2020. These holes were up to 100 meters in depth, so quite shallow. They were targeted on these soil features, recognizing the potential for a similar structural setting as to the west in terms of the orientation of these structures. But really, these were intended to give us the first subsurface tests of these very large anomalies. That drilling was primarily focused in what we call the Fox target, this 5 kilometer long feature here. We did get a couple of holes at McKim, a couple of holes at Cobalt, and a couple of other holes in other targets as preliminary tests with the drill. But really the focus here was proof of concept that we had potential for not only high-grade Keno-type structures, but also potential bulk tonnage representing the scale of these soil anomalies. So if we take a look at the magnetics in the same area, what you'll see is underneath each of these soil anomalies, in terms of the very largest ones, we see this association with this high intensity, low magnetic feature, which we interpret as a relatively shallow magmatic system, potentially, as I said, the source of mineralization, either for the district or at least for these particular areas. On the left-hand side of the slide, you can see some of the results. 30 different intercepts that were over 100 grams, 7 separate intercepts over 500 grams, and we had 1 or 2 intercepts here that were in the 1,000 gram range. So classic Keno style intercepts that we will certainly be offset drilling and stepping out along both in depth and along trend, but within on either side of those structures, seeing the potential for disseminated mineralization that was atypical of Keno Hill, in the sense that these zones were continuously mineralized over tens of meters or even up to 30 meters in width. And so really holding out the potential in those multiple intersections that we could have something much more significant in scale. So we're going to take a look at a cross section. It's what we call a long section. It's going to be along the Fox target here. It's about 3 kilometers long, just to give you a sense of the drill results and the interpretation that we're starting to put together. So you can see the section here, these holes, each of them, only about 100 meters in depth or less. The colors represent the mineralization in silver equivalent. So the green or brighter are the interesting zones. And one of the first takeaways, which is unusual for Keno, is these holes are almost continuously mineralized, even at low levels, which is atypical. In most of the deposits on the west, you have very discrete boundaries, high grade, and very quickly within a meter or less, you're out of grade and rocks are barren. So it's already telling us that we're seeing a different style of mineralization here than we see in other parts of the district. In these various intercepts across these 3 broad zones at Fox, Zone 2, UKHM, we are not only seeing classic high grade, but we're seeing packages of potential bulk tonnage mineralization. And what we've sketched here is these corridors and potential dip, reflecting if they follow the more typical Keno structure in terms of orientations. These boxes that I'm showing here with the higher grade potential structural corridors, anywhere from 25 to 50 meters in width. They're shown as a 300 meter long depth in terms of the depth dimension. And if you were to take that an equal dimension in strike, another 300 meters, at the average grade of these bulk tonnage zones, which is around 65 grams silver equivalent, those individual zones, if you were able to prove them up, could represent tonnages that would support anywhere from 25 to 30 million ounces in each one of those areas. And so it really highlights that the zones that we've already hit in this drilling, if we're successful at stepping down dip on these targets and continuing to test the mineralization, not only testing the high grade structures within them, but the bulk tonnage envelope around them, that you could very quickly put together significant tonnages of material that would be comparable in grade to other bulk tonnage type silver systems, such as Penasquito and others. It's very early days. Many of these holes ended in mineralization. We'll be looking to bring 2 reverse circulation drills to continue to step out and test the other targets that were untested last year, as well as to put a core rig on this and start to test the deeper depth and test the potential across these zones and to understand what the relationship is with the magnetic feature that's been seen in geophysics. So I think that that highlights kind of the key features in terms of our working model. I'm sure this is going to be evolving over time, but we're quite excited about the classic high-grade features we already hit and the potential to be able to step out along those, as well as these new bulk tonnage features that we will be looking to step out and vector along. So in terms of kind of history and catalysts that you can look forward to, the last couple of years have been very much focused on the original acquisitions, starting to develop the data sets and understanding the key areas of focus, starting to model some of those areas that already had multiple pierce points on them and start to build tonnage, and then start to understand really what these new very large soil and geophysical features meant. We've already seen a number of catalysts be achieved. The sampling modeling results that we reflected over on the western part of the district, the recent results from Keno East, the uplisting on the OTCQB in terms of continuing to improve overall trading liquidity. And in terms of pending catalysts, we still have the West Keno high-grade targets at Formo and Silver Queen to be released. We're expecting those final results to be received anytime, as well as results from the ongoing work at La Plata, which will be coming out over the next couple of months. So there's going to be a lot of news flow over the next couple of months as we continue to build on this. And then, fortunately, because we're well-funded, we're going to be in a position to start exploration much earlier in 2021 at Keno Hill and to start to follow up on the work programs that were so successful last year. So looking at the share capital structure, 125 million shares outstanding. With today's market price, we're roughly a 90 million market cap, 80 million enterprise value company. We trade very closely in line with the SILJ index. In terms of major investors, really growing institutional ownership, US Global is one of the most notable, but OTP funds, CrestCat, MMCap, number of new funds that have come in the last financing that was led by Canaccord Genuity, who also covers Alexco. Management owns 22%. Eric Sprott's our largest individual holder. Eric was one of the original early investors at NovaGold as well, so we're excited to be working with Eric. And then we're building on the institutional ownership in particular. Well funded with $8 million in cash, 12 million in the money warrants that are naturally coming in. So we are in excellent position to be able to undertake an expanded drill campaign in 2021 at Keno East, continuing to step out and build tonnage on the mineral inventories on our advanced stage targets towards resources, and to continue to advance at La Plata and to a lesser degree at the alluvial targets. So last couple of points that I'll leave you with. Our focus in the metallic group is first of all to identify targets of scale, which are measured in kilometers, systems that show grade that can be economic for the model type you've got, to be able to apply new world-class deposit models of scale that the majors are going to be interested in, and to bring in track records of expertise in terms of the teams to advance these. And we're doing these in proven districts that already have existing infrastructure. The team came together in 2016 with this focus, really looking forward to a coming multi-year bull market for metals and commodities, which I think is coming together. We consolidated now 2 district scale land positions at Keno Hill and La Plata. We've got the potential to rapidly advance these to resources, and then from there to start to de-risk these through the engineering stages. And that's really how we see driving value going forward. Infrastructure is already in place in terms of these districts, so that really can mean lower cost exploration and much lower cost capital development. And I think Metallic is fairly unique in its leverage to silver, the potential scale, and the fact that we're already in these brownfields mining districts. So with that, Chris, I think we could open it up to see if there are any questions that have been posed from the audience, or.
Yeah, so again, just if you see the Q&A button at the bottom or the hand raise, we can get to you. I guess one right out of the gate, Greg, just in terms of 2021 drilling, you mentioned that we'd be able to get up there a little earlier than we have in the past. Any idea of what's realistic in terms of, I guess, starting groundwork and then maybe on starting drilling?
Yeah, last year, it was a big transition year. I think a lot of people probably appreciate where the market suddenly took an interest in exploration development stage silver. We raised money in August. We then, undertook our programs really by September. We were drilling with the first drill, added the second drill. So it was a late season effort to get to, where we got to for the season. One of the biggest programs we've had in our short history of 42 drill holes. With 12 of those being cored holes and the rest being the shallow LRC. This year, we're already undertaking plans to have 2 reverse circulation drills on site, and starting with an initial core rig. We may add a second core rig. We will be mobilizing crews in April and looking to start exploration activities in May, and then have the full field season. Typically here at Keno, our optimum field season, though Alexco works year-round and mines year-round, is kind of May until end of October. Certainly, if we're in a drill situation where we're grid drilling, then we can certainly extend that. But that's really the prime field season. So we'll be looking to take advantage of that early start with an expanded program and more drills turning at Keno Hill this year. Our model, similar to what we implemented at NovaGold, is really develop the resources, grow the resources. It can take a couple of years sometimes at resource growth stage, but start to advance those to PEA, engineering, pre-feas, feasibility, and de-risk. And that was really how NovaGold was able to go from a $10 million market cap to a multi-billion-dollar market cap over time, was growing those resources to demonstrate their world-class scale, and then de-risking those through the engineering stages, which related which resulted in re-ratings by the marketplace in terms of the value of those ounces per ground, whether you want to look at it on a enterprise value per ounce in the ground basis based on stage, or whether you want to look at it on a MPV basis. And so really, it's a pretty straightforward model. I mean, nature is going to guide how big you can make these things and so on. But really the model is pretty straightforward. It's one of the areas of our sector where we see the greatest potential to create value is at that initial discovery stage, and then to grow that value by growing those resources and de-risking them through the engineering stage. In the mining industry, we see really kind of two areas of expertise. You've got the mine builders and operators who really, it's all about moving material at low cost and efficiently. And then you've got the teams that find these deposits. And those are really different skill sets. Just like you wouldn't want me to be the guy out building your mine, you really don't want the mining engineer to be the one finding your deposits. And so our team right now, in terms of its current formulation, is really focused on exploration and development. And that's where our track record of finding and advancing major targets comes from. We've got the opportunity with Alexco next door. If we find something modest in size, we may work with them on joint venture basis or otherwise to advance that material to production quickly. We may, if we're successful in finding even bigger deposits, attract a takeover to the district, or even a consolidation of the district. But longer term, we'll be looking to focus on what we do well, which is discovery and advancement, and then at the appropriate stage, partner or be sold, or acquired to really create that last stage of value.
I'm going to paraphrase this question. It's kind of a three-parter, but it's the easiest way. So the news release that came out on Thursday, paraphrasing. So some of the grades were significantly lower than some might expect, and then the intercepts where there was higher grade were narrower than some people would expect. I know we talked about that through the presentation about what we found on the east, the fact that it was recon drilling with the RC and first stage and all that. Maybe just a short hit on those points. And then the second part of the question is today's share action, and if you attribute that to something specific.
Yeah, so let's take the first part of the question first. So in Keno Hill, even the very large Birmingham deposit, when you get to the edges of that system, pinches down to less than a meter in width. So these structures pinch and swell. The key is that you want to be in the right rock types. You're looking for grade and structure to occur in drilling. And then you step out drilling along those structures, looking for where those structures start to widen and create tonnage. And that's really been the cornerstone of Alexco's success, going from no ounces, 6-8 years ago to 100 million ounces over a period of 6 or 8 years, and with the major discoveries. So we see each one of these intercepts, even if they're, 1 meter sample of high grade, as telling us we've got structure, it's making grade. And so that becomes a target at Keno Hill that you then start to step out along to look and see, is this going to blossom out to 3, 4, 5, 10 meter wide structure at those kind of grades? Secondly, within those higher grade zones, as we step out, those were within continuously mineralized material that demonstrates we have the potential for these things to grow and blossom into significant bulk tonnage. So when you put in context the fact that this is the first ever drilling of these very large scale targets, which are measured in kilometers in length and kilometers in width, these are very exciting results because they suggest that we're onto a system of larger scale than has been previously recognized. It's delivering high grade initial intercepts that could be followed up as classic discrete Keno style structures, but it's also delivering the potential for bulk tonnage, which could rapidly deliver ounces with success in terms of delineating those zones. So these are, as reconnaissance results, in my experience as an explorationist, rarely do you go in first pass and drill a big target and have 26 out of 30 holes hit. That was similar to the early days with Nova Gold and at Donlin Creek, where we had a world-class system. We were drilling soil anomalies, and we were hitting in a very high percentage of those, and that ultimately became one of the world's largest gold deposits. But, this is exciting. These are great numbers to be building on. And, I think there's going to be a lot to look forward to in terms of future work. We've been watching carefully the action in silver. Silver has been behaving much stronger than gold. I mean, we saw silver and gold peak in terms of investor sentiment back in August. We've been going through a shorter term consolidation phase with the longer term trend still being up, but that consolidation. Silver has been outperforming gold recently, looking like it wants to break out. And I think, today we saw silver have a very nice move, looking like, we may be at the beginnings of the next major move up. Gold as well picked itself up off of an important technical point with its bounce today. And in metallic minerals, my experience in our sector, in these small cap companies, efficiency of news and understanding of value, it takes a while for the market to really digest drill results and technical developments. And so really, I wouldn't be surprised to see it take a little while for the results of Keno East to really start coming out. Those were just announced last Thursday. So I think a little bit of a delayed reaction. It was a negative silver day the day those announcements came out. And I think we're starting to see the market recognize the potential value there.
Do you expect lab wait times to drop in 2021?
I think we are seeing, there were a number of issues. Going into early 2020 last year, we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to have exploration programs in the Yukon. Very quickly, we started to understand the parameters that we could operate safely with COVID. It meant some changes. We knew there were bottlenecks at the lab and for logistics and things. Just in the Keno district alone, there were 8 drill programs in addition to ours. So there was a lot of activity that really surprised the labs. They were understaffed and they had to deal with COVID. We're seeing them start to catch up. We do still have results that are still not in. So we've got partials on a few samples, but we know those are almost done and we're expecting those. And I think the labs are finally starting to address some of the bottlenecks, adding extra capacity. We are seeing more activity in the industry, so I don't think it's going to completely go away in terms of the lab delays, but I think they're not going to be multiple months. We'll probably get back to a more typical 6 to 8 week type turnaround, I think, going into this year. With our level of increased activity as well, metallic minerals should get prioritized treatment, which will help. The smaller players, don't get the top priority sometimes, but if you can demonstrate your programs are going to be generating more sample flow, often that will allow you to get a higher priority treatment that way. So I think it is being addressed. And I think, it's a sign of a turning point in the industry that the labs aren't getting overwhelmed like this is a real, indicator that, we're turning the corner and this is a major, change in metal price and sentiment and level of interest in the mining sector.
Referring back, Greg, to the structures, how many are we seeing out there of those type structures? Yeah,
so we intercepted 6 separate zones just in the Fox target, each one that was anywhere from 10 to 30 meters in width. All of those contained higher grade classic Keno style structures within them that we'd be targeting anyways. So, very quickly, and those are wide space drill holes. So on a 5 kilometer long soil anomaly. So lots to still be tested between those, but also it gives us a place to start in terms of, you always want to start drilling where you've got grade, you're hitting structure, and you can step out and start to vector along those. And so, 6 immediate targets at the Fox area, a couple targets up at Cobalt Hill, untested anomalies. We got 6 or 7 multi-kilometer scale targets that don't have a single drill hole in them yet, but have similar magnitudes of soil response to Fox. So those will also be things that we'll be looking to target with this, and to get a few deeper core holes across these big structural zones, and to start to understand the relationship between this magnetic low feature and the geology. I think all of those are going to be important aspects of the program in 2021.
Okay, the last question in the queue relates to the alluvial projects, and just what's the plan or what's the expectation for 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so it's still pretty early days there, but we've got 4 operations under license. They've had the first year of infrastructure. They've had the second year of exploration. We're expecting those to be bulk sampling this year. with the potential, with those results look good, that those guys are just going to transition straight into mining. They already have the water license, which is the key license there. We're working on permitting an additional 8 license areas. We're already in discussions with a number of experienced operators on those. So our hope would be to bring in a few more operators. With the guys downstream starting to produce gold, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to bring in new operators above that. The idea is, let's build this so it's covering our G&A, our admin costs, and then over time see how much we can build this out. But some of the open pit deposits that are downstream from us are some of the largest gold producers in the Yukon, and we're really looking at the same geologic setting as we go up into Australia Creek and Malba. So, there's a lot of interest in what we're doing there. It's early days, but, our hope is, this year might see the first of those operations go into production, and then we'll start to build on that over the next couple of years.
Okay, perfect. That is the end of the Q&A. So just again, thank everybody for taking the time. It was a really well attended. Appreciate that. Plenty of news flow to come from Metallic, obviously the Keno West results and among other things. And we'll start to talk about our plans a little bit more as they get fleshed out. The other Metallic group companies as well have plenty of news flow coming too. So if you haven't made yourself aware of those ones, by all means, take a look. With that, Greg, any further thoughts?
No, I really appreciate everyone joining us for this. We're going to try to do these technical focused webinars after major releases in the future. Really trying to recognize the current situation and utilize the best of these kind of Zoom type technologies to be able to bring information directly to shareholders. We appreciate hearing from you. If you're a holder, let us know. Make sure you're add yourself to the news list so you can keep track of what we're doing. And feel free to give us a call if you have any further follow-up questions.
Okay, thanks again, everyone. We'll end it there. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.